Britain's had a few sports-themed game shows. I don't mean panel shows based on sport, I mean shows where sporting activity is part of the game. These include the Indoor League presented by cricket legend Fred Trueman in the 1970s. If you can class it as a game show, it's more like grandstands set at a pub.
And remember, all you lots out at Trent, this is real darts on a Yorkshire board. No trebles, no fluky shots, just a hell of a lot of skill.
Next match features two Southerners. Roy Conagale will be on your left, and Dermot Egerty, who's deaf and dumb, but lets his muscles do the talking.
Yes, it's very much of its time. Jim Davidson's big break? At this moment, you just know.
Elderly.
And whereabouts are you from? Where do you get that lovely complexion from?
Different times, I guess. And a forgotten golfing theme show hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck known as Full Swing. Luckily, he's not driving this buggy far. Of course, in this case, they couldn't build a full-size golf course in the studio, so had to make do with the technology of the time.
A virtual reality computer will show you what they've got to contend with.
The Belfries Brabazon course at Sutton Coldfield.
But now look, this is no ordinary tee. We've got sensors buried in the ground there, so you will get virtual reality of where your ball is going, the direction, and how far you are.
But one show stands above all, not only amongst this niche genre of game shows, but amongst all game shows. For the uninitiated, by which I mean Americans, the French, Australians, basically anyone from outside the British Isles, Bullseye was a game show that originally aired on ITV from the early 80s to the mid-90s in the UK, hosted by one of the era's most prominent comedians, Jim Bowen. It's a bit of a cult classic and really captures working class culture in Britain during that era. It's sort of naff and cheesy, but in a good way, and that's why people love it. The whole format revolved around the sport of darts. Known for its novel prizes, very of-the-time fashions and corny jokes, it's truly legendary. There's even a digital TV channel in Britain called Challenge that still shows classic episodes every day. There have been numerous one-off specials as part of various game show revival seasons, as well as a short-lived remake in 2006 by the same digital channel that shows nightly repeats. In 2024, after renewed interest in darts thanks to teenage superstar Luke Littler, ITV decided to revive the series properly. It began with a Christmas special to test the waters, and 5 more episodes were commissioned for 2025. So let's start off with what works about the new series. It's largely the same format as before, though with some questionable changes we'll get to. The host, another former cricketer, Freddie Flintoff, does a decent enough job. By the way, Flintoff is older here than Jim Bowen was when he started. People really did look older back then. Darts caller Richard Ashdown is a likeable co-host and has his own shtick going regarding his height or lack of it. Importantly, the show isn't a piss take of the original. It adds some modern darts culture like walk-on music for the hosts and guests, and an arena-style audience while still preserving quite a lot of the classic feel. One area where the reboot feels a bit off is the contestant casting. One of the charms of the original Bullseye was the sheer variety of everyday people who showed up. Factory workers, pub regulars, the local darts team legend, couples who looked like they just popped out of Asda and accidentally wandered onto a TV set. There does seem to be a bias towards contestants in their 20s, probably people who won't even remember Bullseye when it was on first time round. This isn't too much of a problem, but it would be nice if some older age groups were represented. To be fair, this conclusion came after the first episode. Some of the later ones have featured intergenerational pairs, which has helped. But the thing is, this isn't a show on a youth-oriented channel like ITV2. The majority of the audience are older people who watched the original. I do accept, though, that contestants often seemed older in those golden days. We've already established that people looked older back then, so perhaps that makes the contrast feel greater. This lady, for example, was only 36. The biggest issue the reboot has to contend with is the hour-long running time instead of the original 30 minutes. Nearly all new commercial TV game shows are an hour now, mainly because it's cheaper for broadcasters to fund 1 hour-long programme than 2 half-hour ones. Plenty of revivals have had to make this shift, and some manage it better than others. Bullseye, I would say, struggles a bit. The first 2 rounds, quiz questions mixed with darts, absolutely shouldn't work. But somehow it always did. At first I thought it was that questions were read out very slowly, but there isn't too much difference. I think it's the constant clapping for everything.
It is for £50, well done, Graham.
That makes it feel slow. Multiply that over several rounds, it really kills the pace. The difficulty level is also off. Most questions are very easy and feel dumbed down, with no room for a satisfying, educated guess. That's much less enjoyable. For example, this sort of question is one where you're not necessarily sure of the answer, but you can work it out.
How did Dr. Christian Barnard create medical history in 1967?
Heart transplant in
right.
South Africa.
Performed the first human heart transplant, is right.
The questions being shown on screen doesn't help either.
Who was the Prime Minister for 44 days in 2022?
Liz Truss.
It just means the audience can answer them before they're even asked, making the process feel even slower. The pounds for points round. It's an odd decision to omit the background music here.
20. Another 20.
9, 20, and 1, a score of 30.
Perhaps they feel it dated the show. However, instrumental music is actually more common in modern game shows than it was in the 80s and early 90s. One positive change is rotating which team goes first on each pass, as the final team previously had an advantage by knowing exactly what they needed to aim for on the board. The new rounds. This is where the show really suffers from having to fill an hour. A new penalty shootout style round has been added along with an expanded Pro Darts Player Challenge. In the original series, the Pro threw 9 darts to score as many points as possible. Simple but effective. Now it's a different challenge.
Yours and Freddie's Bully Charity Challenge is to go round the clock.
Implying it could change each episode. Although so far it hasn't. Flintoff getting involved does add something, but the whole thing drags, which probably is the intention to draw the time out at least. And there's no tension because we only see how they're doing against the clock in the last few seconds. As for the penalty shootout round, it's a good idea on paper.
You're taking in turns to face questions with a numerical answer from 1 to 20. It's then up to the thrower to hit that number on the board.
Wait, I've seen that somewhere before.
This is real darts on a Yorkshire board. No trebles, no fluky shots, just a hell of a lot of skill.
Ah yes, it's the obscure Yorkshire dartboard, much to Flintoff's visible disdain, the gag being he's from a rival county. You just wonder if, had this been on the original, if they'd have come up with a custom board, perhaps with the numbers in order, so a player could hit a different number than intended but still occasionally get the right answer, providing a nice quirk. Then again, perhaps such a board would look too similar to Bully's prize board. It does feel a shame there's no opportunity for teams to add to their own banks here, especially since the money on offer hasn't really risen in line with inflation since the 90s version, making the decision of whether to gamble easier. That said, the first couple only have to gamble their prizes as with the earlier seasons of the original run. And there's the little things. Don't worry, I'm not talking about Richard here. Firstly, the bendy bullies for the losing teams. In the old days, Bone had them on the table and physically handed them over. Now we just get a pre-recorded bit of footage showing them. It feels lazy when they could easily be hidden behind Flintoff's podium and handed to contestants properly. Trivial, yes, but it comes across as low effort and loses something in the process. The grand prize reveal is equally underwhelming. A curtain drops to reveal it, unless it's a holiday, in which case Freddie starts describing the trip with no reveal at all.
Star prize! You just won £10,000 to spend on the holiday of your dreams. Take a look at this.
You can choose to jet off to one of over 100 destinations courtesy of TUI.
making the curtain pointless. This is probably a studio space issue, but something like a set of doors behind where the quizzes stand earlier in the show, sliding open for the reveal, would be far better. So where does that leave the new Bullseye? It's not a disaster by any stretch. You can see the affection for the original, and some parts land beautifully, but the longer run time, the pacing, the things that simply aren't thought through, and the overly polished contestant pool all chip away at what made the original so special. Bullseye was always about atmosphere, a slightly chaotic, warm, very human slice of British life. The reboot gets some of that right, but struggles to recreate the rest. With a few tweaks, tightening the pace, rethinking the new round, making the reveals feel less flat and bringing in contestants who feel more in line with the audience, it could get much closer. It would work better over 30 minutes, but that seems unlikely. Even though ITV are going to be commissioning more 30-minute shows such as Millionaire Hot Seat, thanks to the new soap times leaving the 7:30 to 8 p.m. slot free. This change applies to weeknights rather than weekends. Still, they could commission an extra weekday episode of those shows to pair with a 30-minute Bullseye for a Sunday run. If they did a 5-week run, they'd also have a week's worth of Bullseye repeats to use on weeknights later in the year. There are economic reasons why this probably won't happen, and while 45 minutes would likely fix a lot of the problems, that length is even more awkward for scheduling. Overall, the Bullseye revival isn't bad at all. It's just not great, or should that be super smashing great? But with a few tweaks, it could have been. Let us know what you think about the show in the comments. Support this channel on Patreon to see exclusive content and video premieres, and like the video if indeed you did.